What's up guys, my name's Brandon and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more iOS 18 and 18.1 features and changes. We're going to discuss Apple's major software issues, new details on the iPhone SE 4, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Okay, so let's start with what in the world is going on with Apple software part 2, because last week we talked about two major issues with Apple's software bricking devices. So first, we had iPadOS 18 bricking the M4 iPad Pro, so Apple removed the update and never gave us an iPadOS 18 for that device. Then we had the HomePod version 18.1 Beta 5 bricking HomePods, so Apple pulled that update. And now, once again, this week, it happened again with watchOS 11.1 Beta 3. So it was freezing up Apple Watches and they had to be rebooted for them to be working again. And Apple, once again, pulled the updates. So this is highly unusual for Apple. I don't think I've ever seen this many updates get pulled for some major issues and these major flaws in the software. So this is getting a bit ridiculous at this point. So hopefully this is the end of it, but to have 3 software updates get pulled in the matter of weeks is insane. Anyways, on the bright side of things, Apple did squeeze out an update this week in the form of iOS 18.0.1. That is the first iOS 18 update since the software launched a few weeks back. And this had to be one of the biggest double point updates that we've seen in recent memory because there were some major bugs with iOS 18 and this update fixed all of them. So the first one was the touch responsiveness bug where you couldn't press certain parts of your screen, it just wouldn't work, it wouldn't register. That was fixed. We saw the fix for the iMessage bug where if you send somebody a watch face, it would crash your Messages app and also the other person's Messages app. There was a bug on the iPhone 16s for shooting 4K video where it would just freeze up the camera. And Apple even mentioned that there was a fix for performance. So they said performance may be impacted due to an issue with memory allocation. So performance might even be improved just from this double point update. And this update also patched 2 security vulnerabilities. So the first one was specific to the iPhone 16, and the impact was that audio messages in the Messages app may be able to capture a few seconds of audio before the microphone indicator is activated. And then also one for passwords where a user's saved passwords may be read aloud by VoiceOver. So thankfully nothing major and nothing that was being actively exploited, but it's still nice to see those security patches. And alongside the iOS 18.0.1 update, we did also get watchOS 11.0.1, which was arguably a bigger update for the Apple Watch than iOS 18.0.1 was, because you can see here the fixes were pretty major, because if you have a Series 10 or an Ultra 2, there were major bugs. I mean, battery drain, touch issues. There was a lot of bugs with these new watches on watchOS 11.0. And this update fixed pretty much all of those bugs as well. So Apple Watch may unexpectedly restart for some users. Music app may unexpectedly quit when loading media. Battery may drain more quickly than expected. The touchscreen issues were fixed. And of course, that Messages bug has been fixed as well because it would also crash the Messages app on the watch as well. So across the board, we got pretty major updates this week in the form of those double point updates, along with macOS 15.0.1 and the others as well. Even visionOS got an update as well. So if you were on 18.0 or 11.0 or 2.0 on the Vision Pro, you might want to go ahead and update now because, some people were waiting because they were like, okay, Apple's been bricking all these devices with their software. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to download 18.0.1 yet, but I can say now, and after seeing a lot of users install 18.0.1, we've not seen any reports of devices getting bricked or any type of issue. So it seems like it's safe to go. It's safe to install 18.0.1. Now, switching gears over to iOS 18.1, we should be seeing 18.1 get released to the public later this month. So we did not receive a beta this week, so we are still currently on beta 5 for iOS 18.1, and we'll talk about what to expect next and maybe why Apple skipped this week later on in the video. But I do just want to touch on some of the features in 18.1. So the first one is a major one, and this is one I think a lot of people are going to love in both macOS and on iOS 18.1 and 15.1. So this is the drag and drop feature with iPhone mirroring. Now, unfortunately, I've not been able to get this to work with the Finder app, but I do like dragging files like from my photos on my phone into my notes on my Mac. And that's really been my main use case so far, is just dragging and dropping photos. Now you can use the Files application, of course, and drag and drop that way as well, but that's just been my only real use case for it so far. I'm sure I'll discover more later on, but this feature is awesome. awesome. It works a lot better than I expected. And of course, we do have our first round of Apple Intelligence features coming with iOS 18.1 and macOS 15.1 as well. This is going to be a major update for all iPhone 16 users. Now, we've not seen visual intelligence yet. That's where you press and hold on the capture button to, get visual intelligence of a business or a store or a pet, whatever the case may be. So we don't know if that's coming in 18.1 because we haven't seen it in the betas yet, but we'll maybe see that in the next beta or maybe in 18.2. And of course, we do have a lot of other features as well. So for the iPhone 16s, we do have the selfie view now. So if we go over to our cameras here and we switch all the way down past 0.5x, you can see that we do have a selfie view right there. So that is new for the capture button on iOS 18.1. And of course, we talked about all the other changes here on the channel, so I won't repeat those. Now, I did want to mention that the Siri 2.0 animation, the all around Siri animation, has been broken for more users even after beta 5. So that is when you press and hold right here. You can see mine works just fine. I do see the Siri animation there, but some users have had their Siri revert back to the OG Siri, where it's just the circle in the bottom middle of the screen. So I've not experienced that myself, and I have this installed on like 6 devices, but some people are seeing that issue with their Siri. Now, as far as the performance goes on iOS 18.0.1 and 18.1, I do think that iOS 18.0.1 is going to have the better performance all around right now, just because it's the latest update and we've not had that, update on 18.1 yet. So with the next beta of 18.1, we should have all the features and the fixes, I should say, that came with 18.0.1 along with the performance improvements. But for right now, 18.1 is running fine. There are quite a few issues still. Performance isn't the best. It's fine. It's not terrible, but I do think performance will be better on 18.0.1, at least until we get beta 6 of 18.1. Now, as far as the battery life goes, battery life has been okay for me on my iPhone 16 Pro Max running the 18.1 beta 5 updates. Again, I would expect even battery life to improve with the next beta because we should be seeing those fixes from 18.0.1 get implemented into the next beta of 18.1. So beta 6 should be a pretty big step up from beta 5 if that is the case, especially for the iPhone 16 series. So I'm very excited for that. But just looking at my battery chart, you can see that my battery life has been pretty solid. Like I do charge once a day. Usually you can see I'm charging like pretty much just once a day, which is really nice. And over my last 10 days, you'll see that I only hit 100% one time. So I didn't hit quite 100% any day except for Wednesday, where I went all the way to like almost 125%. But across the board, you can see, I'm spending, 12 hours combined time most days with screen on and screen idle, and I'm not hitting that 100% mark, which is pretty solid, especially for a beta. So again, I'm excited for 18.1 and beta 6, and of course the final release. So let's talk about when to expect that. So next week, I would expect to see 18.1 beta 6. Now, again, the reason we didn't see beta 6 this week is, in my opinion, in my thought process, I don't know for sure, nobody knows for sure, but I think that Apple was waiting to push out the 18.0.1 update and get the fixes pushed out to the public first and then for beta testers. So that's just one of a couple theories I have, but I do think that Apple is waiting to push out the public release first. So we should be seeing those fixes again in 18.1 beta 6. And also Apple just needed more time for beta testing. Like there's a lot of issues going on right now, a lot of bricking devices, a lot of updates being pulled. Apple is most likely quadruple checking everything at this point. With that being said, I do think that we're going to see 18.1 at beta 6 next week on the week of October 7th. And I do think that that could be the final beta before the RC. So we might not be seeing a beta 7 for 18.1. I do think we're going to go from beta 6 to the RC and then to the final, if not maybe an RC2 and then the final. So the week of the 7th is when we should see beta 6, and then we should see the RC the next week or maybe even the following week, and then we should see the final release of 18.1 on either the week of the 21st or the 28th. And then I've had a few people ask me if we're going to see 18.2 betas start anytime soon. Even as early as this week, people were asking about 18.2, but I don't think we're going to see that until 18.1 is out to the public. I think what Apple did here with 18.1 betas is very different because of Apple Intelligence. So I don't think we're going to see 18.2 betas until most likely the end of October, if not even November. I think it's going to be after 18.1 gets pushed out to everybody. Now, of course, things could change. Apple could push it out if maybe visual actual intelligence is in 18.2 beta 1. We'll have to wait and see, but that's just my guess right now. Okay, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And this week was pretty light with news, but I do want to talk about a few things, starting with the iPhone SE 4, because this looks like it's going to be a pretty big deal. So the iPhone SE 4 is expected to get the first ever Apple-designed 5G modem that will incorporate Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. But according to Mark Gurman, the Apple-designed modem is not going to have big performance improvements over the current Qualcomm modem that we have in iPhones right now. But he does say that over time, this modem will evolve and eventually get better and more deeply integrated with the chipset inside. So even though we won't have performance improvements, this will be cheaper for Apple to produce in theory. And of course, it should also be more efficient. Now, this iPhone SE is also expected to get the same A18 chip as the current iPhone 16 models, along with 8 gigs of RAM, which means that it will have Apple Intelligence support. It's also going to allegedly have a 6.1-inch OLED display with Face ID, a notch, the action button, USB-C, and a single lens 48 megapixel rear camera. And Gurman once again reconfirms that this is expected to come in early 2025. Now, one thing that we haven't really seen rumored is the price of the iPhone SE 4. We've not really seen anything concrete about this, but what I will say is that if Apple can get this iPhone SE for under $500, if they can get this at like $499, I think this is going to be a major competitor in the entire smartphone market, and it's going to be a big seller for Apple, especially given the fact that it has Apple Intelligence. Now, of course, we're not going to have the dynamic island. It is going to have thicker bezels and everything like that, not as good of a camera, but still, it's going to have Apple Intelligence. That's like the future of Apple and what they're really pushing right now. And of course, 48 megapixels, even in a single lens, is going to be quite impressive for a sub $500 device. So we'll have to wait and see on this, but I'm pretty excited about the iPhone SE 4 because I think a lot of normal casual users who don't really care a lot about the latest and greatest are going to love this phone. But something coming earlier than 2025 are the M4 Max, and we should be seeing those in just a few weeks. So we should be seeing Apple event invites go out within the next couple of weeks, I would say, if we are going to see an Apple event in October, like Mark Gurman thinks we are. Now, we're still expected to see an M4 iPad Pro, M4 iMac, and M4 Mac Mini. So the M4 Mac Mini is going to be pretty interesting because it will have a major redesign. So it's going to be the first major redesign since 2010 for the Mac Mini. So all of those are expected at this event. And we could also even see a new iPad Mini. So we might be seeing the M4 iPad Mini. Don't expect any type of major changes to it aside from the M4 chip inside, but still a lot of people have been waiting on an M4 iPad Mini, or a new iPad Mini, I should say, for quite some time. So this will be a nice upgrade for you guys. Oh, and we should also be seeing a new iPad as well, just the entry-level iPad, which is always an extremely hot seller. So this update looks to be packed with a lot of new products. We don't know if the iPads are going to have the M4 chip or maybe like the M3, whatever it ends up being, they will have a nice upgrade as well. But I think the Macs are what everybody's most excited about, especially because we're now hearing that the base model will start at 16 gigs of RAM. So it might be RIP to 8 gigs of RAM on Macs. And then finally, we have another crazy AirTag story. And shout out to everybody who sent this to me. I had about a dozen of you guys message me the same story over on X and on Instagram. So if you guys ever find a crazy AirTags or find my story, be sure to send it to me over on social media. Anyways, this time a man in Connecticut had his car stolen, and it wasn't just any ordinary car. This was a beautiful 2023 Ferrari 812, which looks to be finished in Nero Daytona. That's a $500,000 car that looks and sounds amazing. Anyways, upon learning about the theft, the man called police and had more details to share with them. And that's because he left his AirPods in the back seat, and he was able to see the live location in the Find My application, and he was able to report that back to police. And thanks to those AirPods that were accidentally left in the back of the car, police tracked down the man to a gas station where he jumped out of the car and fled. Now, police didn't catch the suspect at the time, but since he left his iPhone behind, police were able to identify the suspect and later track him down after he stole another car with an acquaintance. And of course, both of those suspects were arrested and charged. So that is a crazy story. I don't know who thinks they can steal a $500,000 Ferrari and get away with it and not be, getting all the attention drawn to them. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is, if you have AirTags or AirPods in this case, be sure to hide them somewhere in your car. Like if you don't have AirTags and you're worried about something getting stolen and you have your AirPods on you may as well put it in there and hide it real good. That way you can at least track it if it does get stolen. Anyways, that's it for this week. If you're looking for another video to watch, one of these two might be of interest to you. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.